When we picture the future of artificial intelligence, we usually imagine something pristine and glowing. We picture clean white server rooms, advanced silicon architecture, and algorithms solving the mysteries of the universe.
What we do not usually picture is a massive, roaring industrial combustion engine. But the irony of the current AI boom is that the most futuristic, advanced industry on Earth is currently relying on one of the 19th century's favorite fuels just to keep the lights on.
Welcome back to the Working Thesis. As we have tracked throughout the AI Power Problem series, the $2 trillion AI backlog has collided headfirst with an aging, bottlenecked electrical grid. To bypass the queue, tech giants are building their own power.
And the fuel they are turning to isn't advanced nuclear, and it isn't massive batteries hooked up to solar farms. The bridge carrying the tech industry into the future is built entirely out of natural gas. Today, we look at why.
Quick, honest note before we dig in. This is just two curious people thinking out loud, for learning and for fun. It's not investment advice and never a buy or sell call, so always do your own homework. To understand the pivot to natural gas, we have to remember the constraints the hyperscalers are facing. They need power that is fast to deploy, incredibly reliable, and available 24/7. Wind and solar are clean, but they are intermittent.
Nuclear is firm and clean, but as we discussed in episode 6, it is a story for the 2030s. If you need a gigawatt of power to turn on a data center campus in 2026, natural gas is the only industrial-scale answer that works on the timeline tech demands.
It is what the energy industry calls a bridge fuel. It is the structural stopgap that spans the valley between the saturated grid of today and the advanced clean energy grid of tomorrow.
The hyperscalers are well aware of their net zero carbon pledges, but they have looked at the math and decided that stalling the AI revolution while they wait for clean energy is a worse outcome than temporarily burning natural gas. The race is simply too competitive.
Aside from the speed of deployment, natural gas is winning because of cold, hard grid economics. Even when you are connecting to the public grid rather than building behind the meter, natural gas enjoys a massive structural advantage in interconnection costs.
When you connect a power plant to the grid, the utility charges you for the necessary upgrades. Because natural gas provides firm, predictable baseload power, the grid operators know exactly how to handle it. Connecting a gas plant costs roughly $24 per kilowatt.
Now, contrast that with intermittent renewables. Because wind and solar output fluctuates wildly depending on the weather, the grid has to build expensive buffering systems. The interconnection cost for those projects can easily soar to $250 or more per kilowatt.
So natural gas is not just faster, it is a full order of magnitude cheaper to plug in. When you are rushing to build out tens of gigawatts of new capacity, that cost differential makes natural gas the absolute path of least resistance.
The scale of this pivot is showing up clearly in the data. For years, the story of the U.S. power grid was the steady retirement of fossil fuels and the rise of renewables. But the AI boom has dramatically altered that trajectory.
According to data from the Global Energy Monitor, U.S. natural gas capacity currently in development has roughly tripled, reaching approximately 252 gigawatts. That is a massive reversal of the long-term trend we thought we were on just a few years ago.
Within that broader pipeline, utilities and developers have planned roughly 107 gigawatts of new gas generation specifically targeted for the 2026 to 2030 window. The data center load is forcing grid planners to throw out their old models and rewrite them with gas at the center.
And you can see the direct impact on the clean energy transition. In recent utility planning documents, the share of planned capacity coming from renewables has actually slipped from about 91% down to roughly 85%. Gas is eating into the clean energy lead.
But deciding to build a natural gas plant is very different from actually building one. You need the heavy machinery to generate the power, and the supply chain for heavy-duty gas turbines is an incredibly tight bottleneck of its own.
The global market for these massive, high-efficiency gas turbines is essentially an oligopoly. It is dominated by just three massive industrial players: GE Vernova, Siemens Energy, and Mitsubishi. Together, they control well over 75% of the heavy-duty market.
When the tech industry suddenly realized it needed natural gas to power AI, the order books for these three companies exploded. They went from managing a mature, predictable replacement cycle to dealing with a frantic, multi-billion-dollar demand shock.
Today, the wait lists for these top-tier turbines are so long that they stretch out to roughly 2028. It is almost a running joke in the energy sector right now. If you want a heavy-duty gas turbine quickly, your best bet might be to just buy the factory.
Because the heavy-duty turbines are sold out, the data center developers have to look further down the industrial food chain. If you cannot get a massive turbine from the oligopoly, what do?
You buy massive reciprocating engines and heavy industrial generator sets. Companies like Caterpillar and Cummins are stepping into the gap, providing massive diesel and natural gas engines that can be deployed relatively quickly.
These gensets are essentially the brute force backup plan. They aren't as efficient as a combined cycle gas turbine, and they require significantly more maintenance. But when you have $1 billion of GPUs sitting in a dark warehouse, efficiency takes a back seat.
The hyperscalers are willing to accept suboptimal generation equipment simply because it is available. The mandate from the top is to get the compute clusters online at all costs. The hardware that is available today beats the perfect hardware that arrives in 2028.
This scramble isn't just reshaping the companies that make the turbines. It is fundamentally transforming the companies that pull the gas out of the ground and move it across the country.
For decades, midstream natural gas companies, pipeline operators like Williams, for example, focused on moving molecules from the wellhead to the city gate. Their business model was relatively simple: charge a toll to move the gas.
But the AI boom has given them a completely new value proposition. These pipeline companies own the rights of way, they own the physical pipes, and they have access to the cheapest natural gas on Earth.
So rather than just acting as a toll road, they are actively looking to turn their pipes into power hubs. They are partnering with data center developers to build compute facilities right along the pipeline routes, generating the electricity right at the source of the fuel.
This massive pivot to natural gas creates an incredibly uncomfortable tension for the technology industry. Every major tech company has made sweeping, highly publicized pledges to achieve net zero carbon emissions by the end of the decade.
But you cannot build 100 gigawatts of new natural gas capacity and hit those net zero targets without massive, currently unproven carbon capture offsets. The reality is that the rapid scaling of AI is forcing utilities to defer their clean energy goals.
Environmental groups are sounding the alarm. They argue that by extending the life of fossil fuels, the tech industry is prioritizing the race for artificial general intelligence over the immediate health of the planet.
The tech executives counter that without AI, we won't have the advanced materials science or the grid optimization algorithms needed to actually solve climate change. They view the near-term emissions spike as a necessary investment to unlock long-term technological salvation.
Regardless of the philosophical debate, the physical reality is that building a gas plant still requires a permit, and local communities are increasingly hostile to the idea of new fossil fuel infrastructure in their backyards.
You might be able to bypass the electrical grid queue by building your own power, but you cannot bypass the EPA or the local zoning board. The permitting process for a new gas plant is often just as fraught and litigious as the permitting process for a new transmission line.
This means that the 252 gigawatts of gas capacity currently in development is exactly that, in development. It is a plan on a spreadsheet. A significant portion of that capacity will likely face legal challenges and delays before it ever burns a single molecule of gas.
The bridge fuel is available, but the bridge itself still has to be built through a maze of local, state, and federal regulations. The friction of the physical world applies just as much to gas as it does to wind, solar, and nuclear.
There is also a structural business risk to this frantic gas build-out. It is the classic boom and bust dynamic. When demand spikes, capital rushes in to build supply. But what happens if the nature of the demand changes?
We have repeatedly noted that AI demand is relocating and broadening, not slowing down. But a key part of that evolution is efficiency. The foundational models are getting significantly more efficient with every generation.
We are seeing a massive push towards smaller, highly optimized models that run on the edge, on phones and laptops, rather than requiring massive, centralized cloud compute for every single query.
If algorithmic efficiency improves faster than the industry expects, some of these rush-ordered on-site natural gas plants could end up being overbuilt. A facility planned for 500 megawatts might only need 200 megawatts if the next generation of GPUs runs the same workload in half the time.
But for the hyperscalers holding that $2 trillion backlog, overbuilding is a risk they are entirely willing to take. In their risk models, having too much power is an expensive mistake. Having too little power is an existential threat.
They are playing a winner-take-all game. If you lose the AI race because you waited for grid-connected solar power while your competitor bought a gas turbine, you don't get a second chance. The market does not reward patience in this specific era.
So the bridge fuel will burn. Natural gas is the pragmatic, undeniable reality of the 2026 AI landscape. It is the only way the industry can fulfill its massive cloud contracts while waiting for the nuclear promises of the 2030s to materialize.
The 19th century fuel is powering the 21st century mind. It is messy, it is controversial, but it is the physical reality of the data center supply chain today.
So we know the industry is scrambling for gas turbines to generate power, and we know they are waiting years for the transformers to control that power. These are the two biggest bottlenecks in the entire AI ecosystem.
Which raises an incredibly lucrative question. What happens if you are a company that manufactures both? If you sell the near-term fix and the long-term solution?
Next time on The Working Thesis, we are going to look at the business of the bottleneck. We will explore what it looks like when a heavy industrial manufacturer finds itself holding the keys to the entire AI revolution, selling both the shovel and the map.
While the software companies fight for users, the hardware companies are quietly stacking up decade-long backlogs. We meet the bottleneck kings in episode 8. See you then.
That's a wrap for today. Thanks for thinking it through with us. We're just testing our theses out loud, one day at a time.
Catch you on the next one. Stay curious and tell us where we're wrong.